Clerk, is the CS Agriculture present? Thank you. Honorable CS and your team, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to the Senate and to thank you for respecting the request by Senate to come and shed light on the matters that are before us. The next question, Honorable Senators, is again by Senator Mohamed Chute, and that is question number 16. I'll therefore proceed to allow the Senator to pose the question. Proceed, Senator Chute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to raise an issue. I got the answers today, this morning, in fact, 1 hour ago, and our standing order number 51C says that both electronic and physical copies should be furnished to the Senate and to the Senator before 24 hours or on the date of response. I've just received this reply 1 hour ago, and I would want to ask Mr. Speaker to rule on these issues. If we've asked this question about 2 months ago, and the reply is coming today, is this really in order? Because if we continue like this, even supplementary questions I'm supposed to ask, I cannot ask because I've not gone through the answers, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Senator Chute, are you therefore saying that because of the late filing of the response, you are unable to interrogate the response effectively, and hence you need time to look at it so that you can effectively interrogate the response?
Thank you once again, Mr. Speaker. I will still continue and ask the question, but I wanted you to also note that we should desist from giving answers or giving us documents at these late hours. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll proceed and ask the questions.
Honorable CS, indeed, the written response from your ministry ought to be received on or before 24 hours to the hour of response. And therefore, going forward, we will allow you to proceed to respond to the question. However, going forward, please file your responses as per our standing order. I will allow Senator Chute to proceed to pose the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Also, let me thank the Cabinet Secretary for coming before this August House today. My question is as follows. A, could the Cabinet Secretary disclose the food commodities being imported duty-free, stating the approved packaging and container sizes? B, which companies have applied for pre-qualification to import food commodities duty-free from September 2022 to date? And how many of these have been issued with permits to import? Mr. Speaker, question C, how many companies have so far imported goods? And what actions will the ministry take against the pre-qualified companies which have not complied with the terms of engagement? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, proceed to answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I humbly appear or submit myself to the authority of this Parliament to answer the good question asked by the Senator for Marsabit in regard to our duty-free imports into the country. Mr. Speaker, question number 1, or question A, asks me to disclose which commodities have been approved to get into the country, the packaging and the size. My response, Mr. Speaker, is through cabinet direction out of a decision that was made in a cabinet meeting. I was authorized to issue permits to bring various commodities into the country to try and bring down the cost of food in the country. And to that effect, Mr. Speaker, the imports I authorized are as follows. We have the white shelled maize, a quantity of 1.4 million metric tons, which should be on 90 kilogram bags. We have the other second commodity, which is white milled rice, where I got authority to bring in 1.1 million metric tons packaged on 50 kilogram bags. Mr. Speaker, lastly, is that my ministry was also authorized to issue permits to bring in 280,000 metric tons of sugar of 50 kilogram bags. Mr. Speaker, in response to question B, which is the number of companies which applied for pre-qualification and to bring these items, Mr. Speaker, my answer is as follows. Mr. Speaker, we did advertise for expression of interest for those people that wanted to participate in this particular assignment, recognizing the fact that government is not spending a single coin into this, and we were trying to get private sector participation in them bringing the cost of food for purposes of ensuring that we had many participants and for transparency. I did cause an advertisement in the newspapers on December 14th, and out of that advertisement, different importers from all walks of life did apply, and we had a total of 461 applicants. The shortlisting was done, and 275 companies were responsive. And Mr. Speaker, it is out of the 275 companies that we have been, or we issued licenses to participate in the importation of the various food commodities in the country. Mr. Speaker, question C, and by the Mr. Speaker, however, I regret the submission of the answer late. You also find in that annex to the question, Annex 6, as a list of all the people that were pre-qualified for importing various commodities and the quantities which have been allocated to them. Mr. Speaker, question C, is partly answered by Annex C, because it gives you the list of the companies that have been allowed to bring maize, to bring rice, and all the other, and sugar. But question, Mr. Speaker, that is not answered in that question is how or what action I will take against the pre-qualified companies which have not brought the required or the permitted items. Mr. Speaker, allow me try to give the following answer. Remember, I think everybody probably may be aware that we've been going through very difficult times, and the cost of food has been quite high. And because the National Assembly, or Parliament for that matter, specifically the National Assembly, are not appropriating any money for us to use for procuring any food items, then we realize we must think outside the box. And thinking outside the box is how we will be able to bring in private investment or partnerships, collaboration in ensuring there is sufficient food in the country. This is what is informed this decision of giving people permits to bring food into the country, and government waiving a duty on them as an incentive, so that when food is available into the country, and the expectation that we had was that we have quite a lot of inflows of food, and the normal forces of demand and supply will be able to cause imbalance because of the inflow of great quantities, and for that matter, be able to reduce the prices of rice, which, Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to say, today, when this administration took over, a bag of 50-kilogram bag of rice was going for 3,500 and above. And up to now, if anybody went to the market today, that kilogram bag of rice is retailing or selling at a rate of around 1,800, between 1,800 and 200, meaning that this importation, without any government investment, other than the waiver of duty, has been able to substantially bring down the costs of that important commodity. Mr. Speaker, there is nothing I can do for now for anyone who has not been able to bring the food items. Reason, Mr. Speaker, is that though I had legitimate expectation on my part as Minister for Agriculture and Livestock, charged with the responsibility of ensuring there is food and the country's food and nutrition secure, is that because this was not a direct investment or procurement where I would have cost people to provide binding bonds or guarantees, and where we are not putting any money, it may not be possible to reprimand. The only thing probably that I would do is to either look or understand why they were not able to bring in the items as they are underlined, and probably maybe in future be able to exercise greater caution when allowing them to bring in import, because they are in breach of our contractual obligation to bring in food. But Mr. Speaker, after hand and discussion with the importers, most of them, the major problem or challenge give hand is financing. It is not cheap, it is not easy to bring in 10,000 metric tons of rice or maize, because we are talking about an investment of beyond 1.4 billion shillings. And banks have their own stringent rules in assessing in different customer, and for that matter, most of these customers, the problem that they told me that they had was the issue of financing, because probably they never had an idea of how much it would have really cost them. Secondly, the other challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that because of the problems that have been experienced all over the world by the Russian and the Ukraine war, then grains, there is serious scarcity of grain in the world, and it has not been very easy to get the non-GMO maize, which I asked them to bring in the country. So there has been those are the main challenges, and right now, Mr. Senator Marsabit, that is the major problem that we found ourselves in. But as I finish, Mr. Speaker, probably it behooves every one of us to understand the importance of the country being able to feed itself, and the responsibility of ensuring there is food for everyone in this country is our duty as Kenyan people. But it's also the greatest responsibility of our elected leaders, because the people that elect you, the people that vote for you, trust you more than anyone else. So if you took this the responsibility of sensitizing people, of farmers, why we need to get back to our farms and take advantage of the government interventions that we are making for us to be food secure, we won't be able to beat to really overcome this problem. And Mr. Speaker, from this House, I can tell you that our projections, because of the government interventions and for us to be able to cure this problem of lack of food, that the country for the last 4 years has not produced beyond 30 million bags of maize which we require. But because of the government interventions and the grace of God that we've had very good rain, the fertilizer subsidy program that we've been running, then our projections had that we will do 44 million bags, meaning we'll have covered our deficit by around 14 million bags by the time our farmers are harvesting in the month of August. I stand and I commit that when we are starting this importation, and since farmers and issues especially from the south and north rift, that their prices will be affected by the importation, I'm seriously guarding this area, because immediately our maize is ready for harvesting, we are not going to allow any maize into the country, because we want the farmers now to be able to do the harvest and be able to feed our people from the yield or from the produce that we'll have gotten out of this season. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable CS. Senator Mohammed Chute, you've got the option to ask 2 supplementary questions which are related to the original question. You may elect to either go ahead and ask now, or you allow the rest of the senators with questions to the CS, then you close by asking your supplementary questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will ask one question now and then other one later on. But thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Let me thank the Cabinet Secretary for the answers. But, Mr. Speaker, it seems like these Cabinet Secretaries don't even talk. Because I'm wondering, the CS is talking about rice being sold at 1,800. I think 2 weeks ago, the Minister for East Africa, Madam Miano, was before us. And when she talked about buying relief supplies, she's buying 50 kilograms of rice at 7,500. So is this the same government the CS is talking about when he talks about 1,800? And the CS 2 weeks ago told us she's buying 50 kg for 7,500. I think there must be something terribly wrong here. And I think there is, even the CS who was there before, this is like cartels, corruption in making. You see, How can a government buy 50 kg for 7,500 and the CS here standing before this August House is telling us at the price of rice is 1,800. Where did you get these prices from? What is happening? Why are you not talking to the CS, also East Africa, so that you can come up with one price? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS.
Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, I think you allow me to deal with the issue that I'm properly seized of, that is under my docket, and not get to went into other waters that I'm not familiar of. But I'm not lost of the general government collective responsibility doctrine. And why, Mr. Speaker, I will not want to get there is because I've understood very clearly from the great Senator of Elizabeth that it's like two cancers are being brought into the House, which appear to be in conflict. But from where I sit, I want to say very clearly, and I want to be held responsible, that my ministry, or in the course of bringing these commodities to the market, I have not designed, we have not spent a single coin from public coffers. The whole idea was to ensure that we have enough supply in the market, which would be able to cause general reduction of price in our markets through the application of the normal forces of demand and supply. If I cannot be able to control, for example, how much a bag of rice should be bought or how it should retail for, because it's a matter of choice, it's a willing buyer, willing seller. Just like when I sit here, Mr. Speaker, you can decide to take a 500 grams or 400 grams or 300 grams, whatever it is, for beef in an hotel at River Road or Parliament canteen here, whose meat I really enjoy and come here to take meat once in a while, and they pay 600 shillings. Or decide to go to Serena and take the same food or same cut of beef at 4,000 shillings a plate. So it's about choice. So what I have done is to ensure for the very common farmer, for the very common consumer of rice, of unga in Kenya today, can be able to access rice at a cheap price, so that because it's a basic food commodity. So I am not able to really determine what margin or what price.
What is your intervention, Senator Manago? And remember, you cannot, of course, as a matter of fact, raise a point of order.
That's a point of clarification, Mr. Speaker.
Very well.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek clarification from the CS when he says it is a choice. Is the Cabinet Secretary saying the Cabinet Secretary for East Africa has a special population, she is buying rice for 7,000, and he has a special population, he is buying rice for 1,800, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable CS.
Mr. Speaker, I don't want to be misunderstood. I was just trying to give an analogy so that people can know there is food, there is rice that is cheap out there in the market. And why I am trying to run away from that one, getting into any other area that I'm not sure of, Mr. Speaker, is the President himself, in a meeting that was attended in the performance contracting resorts announcement at KICC, once and said that the supplies branch and pre-qualified people that were selling these commodities are 7,500. But in the market, there were lower prices. Mr. Speaker, the prices that I think are being penduled or referred to are very old prices that applied long time ago through the supplies branch. Because I did not, and I don't sure, I've not consulted my colleague cabinet secretary to get to know. Mr. Speaker.
Proceed, Honorable CS. Let's allow the CS to proceed. Let's allow.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the CS to say the information is being peddled in the House?
I haven't seen, Mr. Speaker, the House.
Let us allow the CS to be heard in silence. Honorable Chuta, Honorable Mandago, allow the CS to respond in silence. Proceed, Honorable CS.
Mr. Speaker, I am saying the country has had for some time prices that were obtaining in the market out of a pre-qualification from the supplies branch. And the President didn't direct that ministries must adhere and do pricing and get proper prices indications in the market for government to save money. So why I'm saying I am not able to commit is because I don't know when these prices that their reference is made to were taken. But what I am telling you today is that if you went out to the market today, because we have brought in 530,000 metric tons of rice, the price of the 50 kilogram bag of rice is below 2,000. That one I know is something I am sure of. The importers are complaining to me, saying, Mheshimiwa, you people authorize very many people to bring rice. We are not able to sell. So when probably anybody that bought rice before the coming in of the essential commodities that have come in, probably one bought at high prices. I may not know, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chuta, you will still have an opportunity to ask one other supplementary question, but in this instance, I would like to allow Senator Lelegwe Steve Lutumbesi Samburu.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I was intending to ask the previous Cabinet Secretary the question.
All right, thank you, Senator William Chetumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the CS for, I think it's displaying some aspect of being honest with his answers. But Mr. Speaker, the CS spoke about the fact that some of the suppliers that have been licensed to import products, whether maize or rice or sugar, sometimes don't have the capacity to really comply with that particular order. Mr. Speaker, the arrangement between the ministry, Bwana CS, and those suppliers, in my view, amounts to a contract actually between the ministry and those people. And as you have already stated, the intention is to help Kenyans so that they reduce their prices by that supply. But now that you've confessed to the House that some of the suppliers are unable to bring in the foodstuff, it means they also frustrate your very intention of reducing the prices.
Yes.
What then are you going to do, Bwana CS? Isn't it necessary for you perhaps to ensure that you only give this to those companies that are able to supply? Isn't it good for you to have a precondition before you allocate them this foodstuffs. Otherwise, my fear is that you may allow them and finally still not achieve the objective of wanting to reduce the prices for failure for them to supply. So what will you do? Because you have said it's a challenge, but Kenyans are looking upon you to look for a solution to that situation. What will you do?
Proceed to respond.
Mr. Speaker,
yes.
This is a very unfortunate time, or this came at a very difficult time when this decision was being made, because we didn't have food. And moving forward, I have said in many forums that it is my desire to ensure that we are able to feed ourselves, because even in some countries that I've been to, some countries are more concerned, and which I agree with them, about the food security of their people. So for us to end this problem completely, we have to find how we can be able to produce food for ourselves and run away from reliance on imports. Mr. Speaker, I sent very well, because Honorable Cheptumo's question is genuine, is legitimate, and I appreciate his concern. But my main problem is because this was not a normal, it's not a procurement where we were spending any kind of money. We will not be able to bid the farmers, the importers, by way of serious guarantees on how much, what bid board or what guarantee to sign. I decided, because I was almost foreseeing this happening, and even done contracts for them to sign bidding themselves to certain prices, Mr. Senator Cheptumo. But because this is private investment, you are telling us you cannot give us conditions. You want me to borrow money from the bank at an interest, and you want to dictate to me how much money I will be able to sell. Secondly, was a very bad time when the dollar fluctuations, the currency fluctuations, and all imports are done on dollars. There was insufficient dollar supply in the market. There was the Kenyan shilling was permanently weakening, so it was not possible. So we are even to run away from that one, so that at least you can have incentives. We will get incentives to ask people at least to give us supply, because you may have money and then you have nothing else to buy. So Senator Cheptumo, we may not, although we have now to be more cautious and somehow watch out to these importers with a lot of caution in future, in the event that they apply for any license to bring in imports, because they have really let us down. We would have been better than we are today, and they really kept their promise, because I think when we give them a contract or a license to bring, there was that general understanding that they will bring, meaning that they created legitimate expectation on our end as government, because we're expecting them to bring those commodities to be available to our people in the country, at least to be able to access something to buy.
CS, thank you very much, Honorable CS. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. CS, I appreciate the answers you're giving, more so on what we are doing as a country, because it's embarrassing that we are gathered here in the 21st century as a big economy in this region and still debating about importation. I think your answers need to be more reassuring on what exactly we are doing, so that we stop this business of relying on farmers from other regions. Because the long and short of what we are discussing here is, how are we procuring from other farmers? We are not short of land, we are not short of water, we are not short of people to cultivate. That is what we expect, Cabinet Secretary, that in the next few months we shall be discussing. My question, Mr. Speaker, is with regards to, this is a supplementary question, something that the Cabinet Secretary hadn't been prepared for, but you know, we have always told them to be prepared when appearing before the House. We passed the Tea Amendment Bill here in 2020, Mr. Speaker. Subsequently, the people that we had disputes with moved to court many players in the industry, East African Tea Trade, KTDA, and the likes. With the new administration having come into office, Mr. Speaker, and more so specifically, the directors of KTDA who are in office courtesy of that particular bill, unfortunately, they have refused to withdraw the cases that were filed by the ousted directors. Principally, a specific case, Mr. Speaker, that would have allowed all the 60 plus KTDA managed tea factories belonging to our farmers to pay only 1.5% of their gross as management fee, because they continue to enjoy the benefits as it is. I want an assurance from the Cabinet Secretary. When does he intend to crack the whip as a leader in charge of that particular ministry, to have a sitting with those directors and know that they are beneficiaries of an act that was passed in this House? They cannot on one hand enjoy being in office while on the other seek the protection of the courts not to pass the benefits to the farmers, Mr. Speaker. I want that particular assurance from the Cabinet Secretary so that we know which way do we proceed. Because if these directors are not keen on withdrawing the case, then let's go to the elections and elect fresh directors that still believe in the tea reform movement. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you respond to the question by the Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I can't agree more with the Majority Leader. And I may also say that I am a tea farmer. I know those problems. I passed this law. I was lucky, courtesy of the people of Meru, to be a senator, and I was in this. So I think the best way to address this matter, because I really feel the senator and Parliament cannot just be passing a law in vain. So let me invite the Majority Leader, because he's a man of wisdom, and then because now I'm the other end implementing what I passed here, then we can be able to come up with a proper way of how we need to do it, because it must be done, and whatever is required to be done, I am ready to do it. And Mr. Speaker, then I can report back. But I am willing to take up that challenge and ensure that is best. Mr. Speaker, the issue about tea farmers in the country is something that is so close to me. We have around over 650,000 small-scale tea farmers who really depend on tea, and we are really focused on how to improve the management of tea in the country to ensure there is increased productivity, there is increased yields, to ensure that we have better return for tea. So I think, Mr. Speaker, allow me ask the Majority Leader to come and sit with me and then share his wisdom on how we can be able to manage this, and with the support of the members of Parliament, we will be able to resolve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable CS. I believe the Majority Leader was listening to the invitation and will take it up with you. Senator Gerard Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and thank you to our former colleague, Senator Mithika Linturi, the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture. Mine is, Mr. Speaker, what I had asked earlier on. Bwana CS, your colleague CS of Trade had indicated that he gave an opportunity of duty-free maize into the country. My question is, how many metric tons of maize have been imported since the duty-free period has been open since last year, specifically on maize? And how long will the duty-free for importation of maize into country end before the next harvesting season, especially in North Rift, where I come from, Nandi, Wazingishu, Trans Nzoia, and other parts of the country? Mr. Speaker, sir, and finally, Bwana CS, being a Minister of Agriculture, just adding on what Senator Aaron about tea sector. Bwana CS, are you aware of the tea plucking machines crisis that we are seeing in North and South Rift? And what is your reaction on the issue of crisis of tea plucking machines in our multinational companies, both in South Rift and North Rift, Mr. Speaker? And I note that the Speaker comes from Bomet, where also it is being affected by tea plucking machines. Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, Majority Leader, and myself come from Nandi. CS, could you appraise the country? How will you resolve the crisis of tea plucking machines? Because there are many young people in Bomet, Kericho, and Nandi who do not have opportunity of working with multinational tea farms and also private tea farms because of introduction of tea plucking machines that has caused even a crisis in terms of through the Ministry of Interior. Mr. Speaker, those are my questions. Thank you.
Honorable CS, could you, in response to that question?
Mr. Speaker, my former chairman of Legal and Justice Affairs Committee, and deputized him. I don't know. Rules have changed, and I would want to have to answer this question in a way that I think is best for the country, and I will not give a political answer. I appreciate what the tea farmers and the work done by the people that are given jobs in the plantations of picking tea, and I also appreciate the concerns of our leaders, and especially Senator Chiragei, in terms of the kind of job losses that will be or likely to be occasioned by application of these machines, because I think that is what the main problem is. Mr. Speaker, let me say that I know it's very difficult to change tradition, but since we have gotten to an era of where we must appreciate science and technology, and the way we look into the future is see how we can be able to appreciate science is key for an innovation is important for the development of this nation. One of the things that I'm doing as a ministry is now to promote mechanization. We can't run away from it because we want to increase efficiency, and we want to save on time. We want to delay and be able to reduce contact of human beings and most of the food that is we are consuming. And that is why you find that even in the many markets that we're exporting our horticultural crops, there are certain standards that have been set where we must be able to give, or the consumers must be able to trace source of the food to ensure that it is safe. So in regard to these machines we are talking about, I think the only best way for us to deal with this matter, it cannot be that instant. People must be prepared. We must work closely with the leadership to give alternative sources of income to those people that are permanently in those farms. And that way we are willing to get to see how we can be able to support one another, because I think that is the major problem that we are likely to face. I am also getting into areas where we are going to mechanize, and we are in the process of ensuring that we avail other farm inputs like tractors and harrows to our farmers, so that we can be able to get to be able to produce faster. And I think this discussion requires us to sit soberly and also pick the minds of the great leaders of this country, like the senators, and then I will be guided accordingly. But we are willing to engage and believe in consultation, so that at least we are able to move forward together. In regard to the other question of how much we are bringing in, I assure you, Senator Chiragei, that the interests of the farmers are very close to my heart, and I will not allow any imports that are likely to mess our farmers in the country. We didn't allow in the importation in the short run, so that to avail food, because we are not producing enough. And even before we did, and given them notice, so that they knew. So up to now, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, we have brought in two 477,444 metric tons of maize, which amounts to 3,082,718 bags of 90 kilograms. And out of this, we've had 106,988 from Uganda, 37,149 from Tanzania. We've had yellow maize from Ukraine of 42,464. We've had Ethiopia and South Africa, giving us 90,843. That is what gives us a grand total of 277,444 metric tons. Those are the quantities of the maize that have come in up to yesterday. But I expect to get more maize coming in at the end of this month, because importers have shared with me the ambiguity of lending and the quantities and the source. And I'm trying to assure the country and those people that are busy out there that we are bringing in food of the right quality that is acceptable in our Kenyan market. There is no GMO coming, contrary to what many people are saying. And my KEFIS, KEPS or other agencies, I've asked them to be on the lookout to ensure that whatever comes into the country conforms to the advertisement, that the specs that I put in the papers on the 14th of December, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable CS. Before I allow the next series of members to ask questions, CS, you may resume your seat. I've got a communication to make. Honorable members, I've got communication on visiting teachers and students from Ndararua High School in the Greater South Nairobi City County. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery, we have 51 students accompanied by 3 teachers from Ndararua High School in the Greater South constituency, Nairobi City County, who are in the Senate on an education tour. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Honorable members, I have got, as I said, a series of members with questions. I would like to remind you about the provisions of Standing Order 51C7 on supplementary questions. The questions which are permitted and the supplementary are questions related to the questions with which the Honorable CS with which the Honorable Member had placed before the House for the CS to respond to. So I would like to urge the members to stick to the provisions of the standing orders in their supplementary question. We have in this particular one extended the time we have taken, and I would like for the next members who will ask questions to utilize the minimum time possible. Remember, we still have got 2 more questions for the CS as well as another Cabinet Secretary who is in the waiting lounge. Honorable Mandago Jackson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary question to the CS is on the sugar that is being imported, and the CS has said they are importing 280,000 metric tons. I would like to ask the CS, as the sugar price at the consumer level dropped since the importation of duty-free sugar.
Honorable CS.
Mr. Speaker, these 280,000 metric tons is what was authorized between December and now. We've had over 100,000 metric tons getting into the country and already been consumed I remember in the month of April and May, mid-May, in the month of March, April, and May, a 50 kilogram bag of sugar was retailing for around 53 to around 6,000 shillings. That is from the prices that we were able to gather after we brought the 80,000 metric tons of sugar and come into the country. And out of the first authorization of 100, only 20 was remaining. So, Mr. Speaker, because it's a very fast-moving commodity, we were able to stabilize the market for a short time. And there hasn't been any sugar within the Comesa region, which really supports this country. And I think everyone knows that our milling capacity in the country has continually decreased. Cane farmers are not very keen now in producing enough because of the problems that have been in the sugar industry. And it is out of this realization, again, Senator Mandago, that when the prices of the prices of sugar shot up to the tune of 80,000 shillings again, we realized that for us to be able to contain this situation is to seek more authority to get more sugar coming from the non-Comesa region, because there isn't any sugar within Comesa. So it is on 25th of May that I again sought cabinet approval, and we licensed, or we gave permits for importation of another extra 180,000 metric tons. Out of the permits that were given last month, I want to be honest, because it is not fair or reasonable or gentlemanly to not be clear, and especially when making presentations to a House of Parliament. We've not been able to bring, no importer has been able to ship in sugar out of the last, the few permits of 180. But I expect inflows of sugar in the second week of July, and for the last 1 month, the prices of sugar have been quite high, because we've had very little supply of the commodity in the market. We also attribute to that increased price to the dollar versus the Kenya shilling fluctuation, because our currency has continually weakened. Remember, we are exchanging a dollar to a shilling at 142 shillings. But let me also mention that for us to really be able to deal with the issues of food in this country, we have to deliberately invest in our farmers. We have to deliberately, as leaders in this country, really to sensitize the country and our farmers to really get back to the farms and take advantage of the interventions that the government is making. So without our increased production of cane and increasing our milling capacity of the sugar mills, then we will continually live in this problem. I've had a meeting with the sugar caucus of the senators and the governors from the sugar growing belt. We've had discussions, and we are coming up with a program on how to address this issue so that there is increased production of cane and milling. So when we come, because we're coming with some reforms and to this House, we kindly ask for support. And I think the sugar bill, I think, was also lying somewhere, which we're asking meetings for us to make considerations and see how to address the issue. But as of today, I want to consent and maintain that the sugar price is a bit high, but in the next few weeks, we will be able to bring it down once the imports of the 180,000 metric tons start coming in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable CS. Senator Adan Dula Fatuma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to welcome CS back to this House in a different capacity. And congratulations, Senator CS Mithika Linturi. Mr. Speaker, I wish you can allow me to ask a question on livestock. Of course, for us who are pastoralists, we know agriculture and livestock is devolved. And livestock is our tea, coffee, sugar, and everything. Mr. Speaker, I know also very well 85% of the budget is left with the national government. Unfortunately, pastoral communities have lost all their animals to the long drought that took place quite some time back. My question is, and I know the policy of Kenya Kwanza is bottom up, and there is plan also to accept PPP.
Honorable Senator, I'm afraid.
I'm asking the question. I'm just laying my...
We're running out of time.
I will ask my question, Mr. Speaker. I'm just laying my foundation as far as the question is concerned. Mr. Speaker, my question is, how are you ensuring that the standard on the ground is kept as far as livestock production is concerned? And also, there are abattoirs that are built in many parts of the pastoral counties. Are you planning to bring in PPP to increase production so that those abattoirs are useful to the pastoral communities where people can get employment? We can also be able, as pastoralists, to get those dollars back by importing meat to Middle East where the market lies. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, I'll also request that you be concise and straight to the answer. If you
Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief because that is completely a different question. But my good sister, who is my neighbor in Meru, we really must satisfy our conscience that I am very keen, and the ministry is looking at the interests of our pastoral communities. And for your information, and very good news for you, that already have completed building or doing the Isiolo abattoir. Right now, the cold rooms are being fabricated in Italy, and will be operationalizing that abattoir very soon. Secondly, we are running a program by the name Drive, which I'm launching on, I think, 14th. And the part of the good things that come with it, because it's in Isiolo, it's in your area, is that we are trying to increase to bring in our farmers to manage livestock in a more orderly manner. We are going to support the production and the rearing of the animals. We are going to create or support you to build the feed lots for you to be able to feed your cows and animals. We are going to contract the farmers to grow pasture for those animals, meaning that we'll be able to bring in more people into employment from those pastoral communities. We are also in the process of we are going to ensure that we have a good market for them. So, because in general, that is what I would want to tell you, and this is something that is beginning in the financial year, in the next few weeks on July, and that's why the launch is on 14th of next month. It should have happened like last week, but we had other engagements that did not make it happen. So for more information on how we are going to do this, you are also welcome to pay us a visit in the office. And I believe I'm a livestock farmer. So it is to the interest of the livestock people and farmers in this country, and it's a key area that the Kenya Kwanza government is looking at because of its potential to grow the economy. Remember, we are keen on leather, increased milk production, and I want us to engage because I think you have the potential. If you were to increase the production of your milk from the 2-3 liters per cow to around 6 liters per cow, would have sorted the problem.
Like you to
Thank you.
Conclude. Thank you. Senator Alexander Mundigi.
Thank you, Bwana Speaker. Yangu ni maswali kwa CS wa Agriculture kuuliza kama kuna uwezekano upande wa mbolea iwe inakuja mapema ndio tuwe na kilimo bora kabla kama mvua haijaanza kunyesha, na pia iwe mbolea pia watu wamelaa upande ya Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Mbere, unajua tunalima miraa. Kama kuna uwezekano kama sasa ni cash crop, kama utakuwa ukitusaidia na mbolea pia ya bei ya chini. Na pia upande mwingine ni mambo ya makandamia, unajua vile tumeyataabika, uweze kutusaidia na bei, kwa sababu unajua hiyo yote iko kwa wewe, uweze kuandika barua ndio iwe kama ni temporary, ndio tuweze kuuza kupata bei nafuu, kwa sababu wakati wa zamani unajua tulikuwa tunauza shilingi 200 na sasa ni shilingi 20. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Honorable CS.
Bwana Speaker, kama desturi na sheria zijabadilika, wakati nilikuwa hapa swali lingeulizwa kwa Kiingereza unarudi kwa Kiingereza, unarudisha Kiswahili unarudi kwa Kiswahili. Kwa hivyo nitajaribu kuweza kurudisha kujibu swali la Mundigi, na niseme ya kwamba serikali ni kweli tunajaribu vile tutavyoweza ili kuweza kuleta mbolea wakati ufahao, sababu hata ukosefu wa mbolea siku moja ama mbili una affect mazao. Kwa hivyo wakati tunaendelea huu msimu mwingine wa mvua wa Julai kuenda mpaka huko Oktoba, tumeweka mikakati ili kuhakikisha store zetu siko na mbolea ya kutosha, na nitajaribu vile itawezekana iweze kufika. Ninafahamu kwamba na nakumbuka vile ulisema tulipokuwa kule Embu mambo ya makandamia, na nisema ya kwamba tunaangalia pia vile tutafanya. Nakumbuka hata senator wa chairman wa kilimo ameniambia kuna njia ya kusuluhisha hii shinda, lakini ukweli ni kwamba ile shinda tulio nao na kwa vile makandamia yachukuliwi ni kwa vile wale walikuwa wamekusanya wameshindwa kuuza nje, na kwa hivyo hawana pali ya kuweka. Kwa hivyo ninapanga kupeana leseni za watu kama wale wameapply ili waweze kupeleka makandamia nje ya nje, wa create ile space na room ya kuweza kununua hayo mengine. Na pia ili kuchunga mkulima, nimepeana ruhusa kwa chairman wa hafa kuenda China na maofisa wengine kuenda kuangalia soko, ili tusiweze kuwa tumepea watu hapa ambaye wanapata bei iko juu zaidi na alafu wanakuja kununulia wakulima wetu na pesa iliyo chini. So in another I think 10 days hii mambo itakuwa nimemalizana nayo, na kwa hivyo Mundigi ninajaribu vile ninavyoweza, ni vile tuko wachache pale. Kwa hivyo tafadhali maoni yenu nayataka, na kama if you have a better idea on how we can do it, then niko tayari kukaa na nyinyi tuweze kukubaliana. Asante.
Thank you, Honorable CS. You did very well until when you're just about to conclude, you forgot that you were doing it in Kiswahili. But nonetheless, you have responded. Honorable members, I would like to give to the last Honorable Murango. So that we close on this particular question, I'll request that you also be quick, and as well the CS kindly just respond directly to the question as it is asked.
Asante sana mstahiki Spika kwa kunipa hii nafasi kumuuliza waziri wa kilimo, na yangu si mengi. Waziri, kwanza hebu nikushukuru. Mswahili usema mgala muwe na haki yake umpe. Kwanza ile kazi umefanya juu ya mbolea, leo nimetoka Moya na wakulima, ile shinda ilikuwa umeitatua kwa muda mfupi sana. Saa hii wakulima wanafurahi Jambo kidogo tu, fertilizer 17 na 23, hiyo maneno tufunge, tupange maneno ya ndege kwa sababu ya wale kuelea. Hiyo ingine waziri, ni kwamba yangu ni mambo na hiyo mchele. Saa hii umetupatia mbolea, tunalima mchele Moya, Bunyara, Ahero na Mbura, na tutalima mchele ya kutosha. Kwa hivyo ningeomba ya kwamba wakati mnafanya uamuzi wa kununua mchele kutoka nje, muhakikishe ya kwamba ile ambayo tutalima kwa hiyo mbolea ya ruzuku umetupa kwanza, mmechukua yote, wakulima afurahie. Alafu kuna kiwanda inaitwa MRGM, ilichukuliwa mchele na KNTC, najua haiko kwa wizara yako, lakini toka Disemba mpaka wa leo hawajalipwa pesa yao. Wameanza kukopa pesa ili waweze kupanda mchele, kwa sababu huu ni msimu wa upanzi. Ningeomba pia uongee na waziri, kwa sababu hii ni kilimo pia, waweze kulipwa, wasinje wakakopa pesa ambao ama wakose pembejeo za kupanda ya kushughulikia mchele. Asante sana kwa kazi ambayo unafanya.
Thank you, Senator Murango. Honorable CS, I hope that will be done in the next 30 seconds.
Namshukuru Senator wa Muranga wa Kirinyaga, sababu hakuna swali ameniuliza. Ameongea. Thank you for the compliments. Na niseme ya kwamba nitajaribu. Nilipopata shinda yako ya mambo ya fertilizer, nilipata nikiwa nje ya Nairobi, na unaona nilifanya kazi, and I'm happy watu tayari wamepata fertilizer. Nataka pia kusema ya kwamba tumejipanga vizuri, na fertilizer itakuwako ya kutosha na pia bei ya chini, na kwa hivyo hakuna kitu ingine mimi nataka munisaidie naye tafadhali ndugu zangu, ni kurundisha watu kwa mashamba tuweze kushalisha chakula, na wale wengine tuwaombee wajue tuko na jukumu ya kushalisha chakula kama wa taifa. Mambo ingine tuachane nayo na kucheza na maisha ya Wakenya. Asante.
Thank you very much. Senator Chute, your last supplementary question. Kindly be quick and straight to the question to the CS.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I cannot be that short because this is my question, and I was given these answers very late, and that is not my fault. That is the CS's fault. But I want to put a question to the CS, and it will be a bit broader. Well, Mr. Speaker, there is something I don't understand. There is, according to the CS trade, there was an exemption, duty exemption, for Kenya National Trading Corporation on rice, 150 metric tons, sugar, 200 metric tons, and beans, 80 metric tons. And similarly, there is an exemption that came from Ministry of Agriculture of rice, sugar, and other commodities. And the CS told us they have not used any government money. Mr. Speaker, if the government has given exemption in the tune of billions of dollars, does it mean that the money that was exempted is not public money? Of course it's public money. What I want to ask the CS, Bwana CS, what are you going to do so that between the two ministries you can sit and discuss and agree on which formula to use? Are you going to use KNTC formula, which is going to be very expensive for this country? Because if you give an order to KNTC gives an order of commodities, and the goods prices abroad goes down, of course KNTC is going to lose heavily. So my question is this: what are you going to do to incorporate the importation of goods between your ministry and the Ministry of Trade, so that you concentrate on one way of importing goods? Because the way you are doing, I accept that is the best way to do, because the government is not incurring any cost, any losses. KNTC is going to make heavy losses because of exchange of dollar rates and also price variations. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I would want to ask the Minister would I be wrong if I ask this Honorable House to initiate parliamentary inquiry to investigate your ministry? Because we are aware your ministry and trade ministry is giving permits below the table. Will I be wrong if I say we need to investigate both ministries, your ministry and Ministry of Trade? Because there are a lot of corruption issues being rumored around, and I want you to answer me in a short formula. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable CS, you have got two very specific questions. What do you intend to do?
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I am glad that the member himself concedes to the fact that corruption and those other issues on giving of permits is a rumor. So I can give the actual position because I'm open and accountable to Parliament, and we cannot stop Parliament from making an inquiry, and we are ready to provide any information if so asked. But the position, Mr. Speaker, is, remember, we are in an ambitious process of trying to open government to scrutiny for everyone. That's why we are running an in-government. And we want to get there 100% by end of year. So sugar importation licenses or whatever it is are done online, Mr. Speaker. So when you want to apply, say you have no contact with anybody, you go into the AFA portal, make an application. When you have met the requirements, then you even print from your own house. You don't even go to the AFA offices. So that is how open we are in this space. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, when I was answering this question, I said, because we are not procuring, we are only facilitating importation by extending duty waiver as government incentive for people to bring in food or to avail food commodities in the market. So in terms of costing, of course, I must admit that revenue of government is lost because import duty is not paid. But that is the incentive for everyone to bring in. So that is to the extent that the ministry participates in ensuring that these items are here. I am the one who gives permits to any importer to bring sugar. I can tell you, I have not given any permit to KNTC to bring 200,000 metric tons of sugar. I have not, and the position that I maintain is the position of 80,000 metric tons, which was 100 gazetted in December, and the other one 100, and another 25 of on 25th of May, I also got another gazettement of 180. So there is no other sugar that is coming outside COMESA duty-free other than those quantities I am really talking about. So that is as far as the Ministry of Agriculture is concerned, and whose mandate is to ensure these commodities are available in the market, and we are the licensing body or authority.
Thank you very much, Honorable CS. Honorable members, I'm afraid that we will have to end by that, but Honorable CS, you will resume your seat because there is another question that will be asked of you in a short while. The members who are still in the dashboard, I like to ask for your indulgence so that we progress to the next question. Communication from the chair, Honorable Senators. Before we resume to the next question, I would like to communicate, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, visiting delegation from Rotary Club Nairobi, who are in the Senate for a one-day visit. Rotary is a global network of 1.4 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in communities and in themselves. I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that you may be acknowledged in the Senate tradition. Ambassador Dr. Josephine Ojiambo, President. Kamal R. Sankani, Member. Dr. David Tanga, member. Marilyn Mumbua, member. Shubrikha Johari Muhitei, member. Dr. Richard Mwangi, member. Clinton Obongo, member. Joan Sikand, member. Ritesh Barot, member. Anthony Kariuki, member. Geoffrey Ogola, member. Samuel Kinyanjui, member. Dr. Margareta Gasheru, member. Salome Gitoho, member. Lilian Obeto, member. Patrick Okoth, member. Samson G. Kibosho, member. Nelson Mburu, member. And lastly, Celine Monya, member. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful engagement. I thank you. I will allow the Majority Leader 30 seconds to welcome the delegation. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I did follow your introductory remarks welcoming this delegation. I realize you may have forgotten to introduce my good friend, the Honorable Shakir Shabir, who's part of the delegation, a very good gentleman. When I saw him, I thought this is his APNAC delegation. He has a delegation of, normally brings to Parliament of African politicians, no, African parliamentarians, sorry, Network Against Corruption. But this is a Rotary Club of Nairobi. I know the kind of work that they do, the Rotary Club, Mr. Speaker. We celebrate them for the great work that they do to humanity. I hope they'll have a full value for the time that they have taken to come and see the operations of the Senate and the study that they are undertaking here. Mr. Speaker, I hope that each of us, I want to challenge colleague senators who are here, that you will first ensure that there's a Rotary Club in your county, and if there is one, please support them, because this institution does a lot of humanitarian work across this country and across the globe, and it's good to be a member because it's founded on a simple principle. If you're blessed, bless others as well, so that you can become a channel of blessing. So I celebrate them and do welcome them to the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. To Honorable Shabir, indeed, it might have been a typo. The name was missing, but you're welcome in the Senate. Thank you very much. Now, we will call on to the next question. That is question number 024. The Senator for Marsabit, Honorable Mohamed Chute. You proceed to ask your question to the Honorable CS.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me first of all thank the Minister again for the answers, and also appreciate, I'm also a farmer. I got some fertilizers for my farm in Naivasha at a reduced price. Thank you very much. I go now to my question. Question A, Honorable Speaker. How much money has been disbursed in respect of the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project, which is funded by the World Bank, to counties forming the Frontier Counties Development Council, particularly Marsabit County, from the date 2017 up to now? B, what is the status of implementation of programs under the project? Finally, C, could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether there has been an audit of the project, and if so, provide the audited financial and impact assessment report for the year 2017 to 2022? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond to the questions. And ABC, I hope you should be able to do that, hopefully in the next 5 minutes maximum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm trying to say, Mr. Speaker, that this is a funded project in 24 counties. It's a project that is worth 27.9 billion, running in the 24 counties, and the whole purpose of this project was to increase productivity and build resilience to climate change. Mr. Speaker, question number 1 is I am supposed to give a breakdown of the amount of money that has been extended to the North Frontier counties from this project. And Mr. Speaker, looking at page 1 of the answer that has been given to you, you find that North Frontier counties as a development council, which is composed of Marsabit, Isiolo, Tana River, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, and West Pokot and Lamu. Mr. Speaker, a total of 5,194,188,157.64 has been disbursed to these 8 North Frontier counties, and we've had an accumulative expenditure of around 4.109 billion, leaving a balance of 1 billion. To be specific, Marsabit has received 535,888,674. That is the amount that has been disbursed to it. And Mr. Speaker, that is the answer to part A of the question, because I'm cognizant of your direction. The status of implementation of the program, Mr. Speaker, is that in Marsabit, the project is 100% complete. And when we look at the cumulative performance of this project within the 24 counties, we will see we are at 80% because some counties have not fully implemented the programs they are supposed to be doing. But this project is meant to lapse on that 30th September, and I'm sure by the time we get to that 30th September, all the other counties will have really achieved their target. So, Mheshimiwa Senator Marsabit, 100%. You have good people. Your governor has done a good job because we work closely together in the implementation of this project. The last question, Mr. Speaker, is whether there has been any audit of this project, and if so, we are supposed to provide the financial audited statements. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the project is audited by the Kenya National Audit Office, and we have the audit reports for this period 2019, 2021, 2022. The reports, I think we've already furnished the House with the audit reports from the Auditor General, meaning we are up to date, but the final one will be done once the term of the project is done. And Mr. Speaker, I beg to end there and probably entertain any supplementary question that may arise.
Thank you very much, the Honorable CS. In the interest of time, I believe, Honorable Chute, the question has been well answered. I would like to appreciate you, CS, for taking your time, for the responses that you've given us. Next time, when you're called upon as well by this House, we are accountable to the public and the people of Kenya. We believe and expect that you also come and respond to the questions coming from the Honorable Senators, because they do so in the interest of the people of Kenya. At this juncture, Honorable CS, you and your team, we appreciate you, and you are discharged.